Not every feeling you call love is a blessing. Some are quiet traps from Shaytaan, disguised as connection, but designed to distract you from your purpose. It doesn't start with sin. It starts with thoughts, a glance, a memory, a message. Slowly, that person begins to live in your heart. You think of them when you wake up. You remember them during salah. You ask Allah for signs, but deep down, you already know. You just don't want to let go. Allah says, "Do not follow the footsteps of Shaytaan. Indeed, he is a clear enemy to you." Surah Al-Baqarah 2:168. This is how Shaytaan works. By turning your desires into distractions and your emotions into chains. And the most dangerous part? It still feels like love. Today, let's uncover what many ignore when love becomes harmful and how Shaytaan uses it to quietly pull you away from Allah. These are 7 powerful lessons to protect your heart, your peace, and your connection with your Creator. 1. Shaytaan doesn't attack the heart with hatred. He uses love. One of the most dangerous and subtle tricks of Shaytaan is that he doesn't always come to a person with something that looks evil, dark, or obviously wrong. He's too clever for that. He knows that if he presents something clearly sinful or ugly, most people with even a little bit of faith in their heart will recognize it and stay away. So instead, he chooses a far more effective weapon. He takes something that already feels good, something natural and beautiful, like love, and begins to twist it slowly, gently, until it becomes a doorway to spiritual destruction. He doesn't force the door open. He whispers. He decorates it. He makes it feel safe, warm, even holy. When Shaytaan wants to distract a believing heart, he doesn't always tempt you with hatred, jealousy, or anger. He studies you, he learns your desires, and if he sees that your weakness is your longing to be loved, your wish to be seen, to be chosen, or to feel connected to someone, he starts planting seeds there. The thoughts he whispers aren't evil on the surface. They sound like, maybe this person is meant for you. Maybe this is your destiny. You're just being human. There's nothing wrong with feelings. These thoughts seem innocent, even sweet, and slowly he starts to dress the emotions in layers of fantasy. A passing smile feels like a sign. A reply to a message feels like fate. A coincidence starts to feel like divine intervention. But there is no clear intention of nikah, no involvement of family, no effort to stay within the halal. Just emotions, just hope, and just constant internal dialogue that keeps the person alive in your heart and mind, even when they're not in your life. This is how Shaytaan works. He never forces you into sin all at once. He just plants emotional attachments. He makes haram look harmless. He tells you that you're doing nothing wrong. You're just thinking, just wondering, just waiting. And slowly, what starts as an innocent feeling turns into an obsession. The prayers you used to make for Jannah are now replaced with du'as for a person. The focus you had in salah becomes blurry, distracted by thoughts of them. The clarity in your heart starts fading, replaced by confusion and craving. And because Shaytaan is clever, he makes you feel like this isn't a sin. He disguises it as love. The worst part is, by the time you start compromising your values, you don't even feel like you've compromised. It doesn't feel like you're doing something wrong. Instead, it feels like loyalty. It feels like sacrifice. It feels like a noble, emotional struggle. You tell yourself you're being patient. You say it's just temporary. You convince yourself it will all be halal one day. And so for now, you allow the late-night thoughts, the longing, the tears, and the constant spiritual exhaustion. And all the while, Shaytaan celebrates, because your heart has been pulled away from Allah while you still believe you're doing nothing wrong. The Quran warns us about this very tactic when it says, "And Shaytaan made their deeds fair-seeming to them." Surah Al-Anfal 8:48. That means Shaytaan doesn't make people sin by pushing them off a cliff. He just dresses the edge of the cliff with flowers so that you walk closer and closer. until you fall yourself. The danger of this kind of love is not just what you feel, but what those feelings slowly make you become. You may still be praying, still fasting, still posting reminders about Allah, and still telling others about modesty and taqwa, but deep inside, your heart has been hijacked. It's no longer rooted in the love of Allah. It's now attached to someone who was never meant to live there. You haven't lost your outer identity, but you're losing your inner peace. And once the heart is enslaved to a person, it becomes nearly impossible to fully surrender to Allah. This is why it's so important to not romanticize every feeling and to not assume every emotional pull is something sacred. Some feelings are from the soul, but some are from Shaytaan. And the only way to know the difference is by checking what those feelings do to your relationship with Allah. If they pull you closer to Him, then they are a mercy. But if they make your worship feel heavy, your heart feel distracted, and your soul feel dependent on someone other than your Lord, then what you are feeling is not pure love. It is a beautifully disguised test. And like all tests, you must decide whether to chase it or rise above it. 2. Love that is hidden from the world often becomes hidden from Allah's pleasure. One of the most revealing signs that a relationship is not on the path of righteousness is when it must be kept in the dark. When something truly belongs to you in the eyes of Allah, there is no need to hide it from the eyes of His creation. Yet how often do we see people holding on to feelings, connections, and emotional bonds that are hidden from their family, their community, and sometimes even from themselves, hidden under the excuse of, "It's just feelings, we're not doing anything wrong," or "We'll make it halal soon." But the heart knows. It knows when something feels heavy, when something is being protected not out of modesty, but out of guilt and fear of exposure. In Islam, love is never something shameful. It is not a sin to feel. It is not a sin to want to be loved or to find someone beautiful. Allah created the heart with the ability to feel affection and longing. However, love in Islam comes with boundaries, not because Allah wants to restrict us, but because He wants to protect us. When those boundaries are crossed, even emotionally, it starts to erode something essential: the transparency and sincerity of your soul. When you find yourself constantly deleting conversations, hiding chats, putting locks on your phone, switching tabs when someone walks in, or making excuses for why this person can't be spoken about openly, it's a sign that something is deeply wrong. If it truly was pure, if it was truly love in its proper place, it would be handled with honor, not secrecy. It would involve families, not private DMS. It would seek nikah, not delay it indefinitely. It would walk through the front door of your life with dignity, not sneak through windows of loneliness and vulnerability. And yet, many convince themselves that secrecy is necessary, that we're not ready yet, or people won't understand. But what they fail to realize is that secrecy creates isolation, and isolation is the perfect environment for Shaytaan to work. The Prophet said, "Verily, the wolf eats from the lone sheep." When you hide your emotions, your connection, or your attachment from those who can advise you, protect you, or correct you, you become vulnerable. Shaytaan starts whispering more. He makes the love seem deeper than it is. He makes the delay feel justified. He convinces you that your intentions are still good, even while your actions drift further and further from Allah's pleasure. And what's worse, secrecy eventually becomes a habit. At first, it's just not telling anyone. Then it becomes deleting messages. Then it becomes lying about where you've been or who you're thinking about. And all of this weighs on the soul. It creates inner conflict. It makes you feel spiritually torn because you know you can't ask Allah for peace while holding on to a connection that He never blessed. A love that is hidden out of modesty and protection is one thing, but a love that is hidden out of guilt, fear, or shame is something entirely different. That kind of secrecy does not protect you. It erodes you. It weakens your character. It builds a double life where you speak of taqwa but live in contradiction. You start excusing behavior that you once advised others to avoid. You tell yourself it's temporary, that eventually it will be fixed. But in the meantime, your peace is gone. Your spiritual clarity is gone. Your connection to Allah feels cloudy. And that's the real cost of secrecy. It doesn't just hide the relationship from others. It hides your soul from the light of Allah's guidance. Halal love, on the other hand, is not ashamed to be known. It might take time. It might involve waiting, saving, preparing. But it is open. It is honest. It does not need to be hidden because it comes with sincere intention. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and the companions never shamed love, but they never allowed it to grow in secrecy either. It was always placed in the container of responsibility, accountability, and honor. So the next time you feel emotionally drawn to someone, ask yourself this simple question: if this was truly good for me, why do I feel the need to hide it? Why does my soul feel anxious when I think about involving others? Why do I feel like I'm carrying a weight that I can't share? Love that brings you closer to Allah should not come with shame. It should come with peace. It should strengthen your character, not force you to lie or live in duality. If a connection must stay hidden just to survive, then maybe it's not a connection that deserves to exist, because anything built in darkness cannot carry the light of barakah. And if you truly want love, real, honorable, spiritually safe love, then trust that Allah will give it to you in a way that does not require you to hide, sneak, lie, or feel guilty. Trust that when something is meant for you, it will arrive in daylight, not in secret. It will be something you can share with your family, not something you must carry alone in your heart. That kind of love does not just feel right. It is right because it honors the soul, not just the emotion. 3. Your purpose is not to chase a person. It is to remember Allah. One of the most important truths we often forget, especially when love enters the heart, is that we were not created to chase people. We were not placed in this world to constantly search for someone to complete us, to validate us, or to give our life meaning. That is not our purpose. Our true purpose is far greater, far deeper, and far more sacred than simply falling in love with another human being. Allah created us to recognize Him, to worship Him, to obey Him, and to return to Him with a heart that is purified. Our journey in this life is not about finding someone who makes us feel whole. It is about returning to the one who already created us whole, and then beautifying that soul through obedience, sincerity, and love for Him. But when you become emotionally attached to someone who is not yours in the sight of Allah, that attachment can begin to cloud your vision of your purpose. You start making decisions based on what keeps them close, not what keeps you close to your Lord. You begin delaying obedience because you're waiting for their attention. You stop thinking about your akhirah and start thinking only about the future you want with this person, a future that may not even be written for you. In this state, even your du'as begin to change. You no longer ask Allah for guidance, for taqwa, or for healing. Instead, every dua becomes about them. Ya Allah, bring them back. Ya Allah, make them love me. Ya Allah, show me a sign that they're the one. Without realizing it, your entire spiritual world starts revolving around a single person. And what's most dangerous is that it doesn't feel like you've drifted from Allah, because you're still praying, still fasting, still reading Quran, but your heart has shifted. You're no longer worshipping with presence. You're no longer remembering Allah with sincerity. Your acts of worship become mechanical, and your emotional energy is entirely consumed by someone who may not even be walking toward you. This is what happens when we forget our real journey. You see, life is not a race to get married. It's not a competition to find someone first. And it's definitely not a story that begins and ends with someone who doesn't lead you toward Allah. Life is a test, and love is one of the hardest parts of that test. When it is pure, it brings light to your heart and pushes you closer to your Creator. But when it is based on desire, fantasy, and emotional dependence, it becomes a spiritual distraction, and the longer you stay attached, the further you drift from your real destination. It's important to remember, no person, no matter how beautiful, how kind, how perfect they seem, can ever carry the responsibility of giving your soul peace. They were not created for that. Only Allah can fill that void. Only your Creator can give you the kind of peace that doesn't depend on someone's mood, attention, or presence. So when you place your happiness entirely in the hands of a person, you are setting yourself up for heartbreak. Because people change, feelings fade, and what was once comforting can become confusing. But Allah never changes. His mercy never fades, and His love is never based on how attractive, clever, or worthy you feel. When you live your life chasing a person, you will always feel like something is missing. You will always feel anxious, unsure, insecure, and unstable, because your heart is being carried by someone who is just as imperfect, just as confused, and just as tested as you are. But when you live your life chasing Allah, everything begins to settle. You become calm, you become purposeful, you begin to attract the right people, not through force, but through barakah, because you're no longer begging for love. You're walking in love. You're walking in light, and that light guides you toward what's truly written for you. The truth is, when you prioritize someone else over your own spiritual well-being, it's not a sign of deep love. It's a sign of spiritual misalignment. Love is not meant to replace your worship. It's meant to grow alongside it. It's meant to complement it, not compete with it. When you meet someone who is truly right for you, you won't have to fight for their attention or compromise your values. They will naturally fit into your life in a way that uplifts you and honors your boundaries. They will remind you of your purpose, not distract you from it. But until that person comes, your responsibility is to protect your heart from falling into the hands of someone who does not fear Allah. Because once the heart begins to crave someone more than it craves its Creator, it becomes trapped. And Shaytaan knows this. He will fuel the emotions. He will whisper that this is love. He will convince you that you can fix them, or wait for them, or just stay a little longer, even if it's hurting your soul. But the longer you stay in that place, the more disconnected you feel from your real purpose. So remind yourself often, you were not created to chase a heart. You were created to guard your own. You were not placed in this dunya to find someone who gives you identity. You already have one, and it is Abdullah, the servant of Allah. Your job is not to mold yourself into who someone else wants you to be. Your job is to mold yourself into someone who is loved by Allah, and then trust that He will bring the right people into your life at the right time, for the right reasons. When you stop chasing people and start chasing purpose, you will find that everything else begins to fall into place, not through force, but through divine wisdom. And the peace you were looking for in others will finally begin to live inside of you. 4. Even silent, one-sided love can harm the soul. There is a common belief that as long as you don't act on your feelings, as long as you don't speak to the person or message them or cross any obvious lines, then what you're feeling must be harmless. People convince themselves, I haven't done anything wrong. I've never even told them how I feel. It's just emotions. It's just in my heart. So how can that be a problem? But what many people don't realize is that even silent love, the kind that lives only in your imagination, the kind that you never express but constantly entertain, can deeply affect your soul. You may not be in a relationship. You may have never spoken to this person. You may not even appear different on the outside. But internally, your heart has already been taken. Your mind is constantly replaying what-ifs and maybes. You think about them every morning. You picture them when you hear certain nasheeds or du'as. You dream of a life with them, not because you've taken steps toward nikah, but because you've built an entire story in your head, without ever realizing that this story has slowly become a distraction from the truth of your life and the reality of your purpose. The danger of this kind of silent attachment is not that it leads to visible sin. The danger is that it leads to invisible distance. Distance from Allah, distance from clarity, distance from your own peace. Because every moment your heart is busy longing for someone who was never yours is a moment your heart could have been turning toward your Lord. Every dua you make for a person who doesn't even know your pain is a dua that could have been used to ask Allah for healing, guidance and strength. But when your thoughts are filled with someone, your soul has no space left to breathe. You become emotionally exhausted, spiritually unfocused, and mentally distracted, even though no one else sees it. You may still appear religious. You might still be going to the masjid, still sharing reminders, still showing up to gatherings. But in your private moments, when you're alone, when your phone is in your hand and your thoughts are spinning, you know exactly what your heart keeps returning to. You feel it in salah, when your body bows, but your mind wanders. You feel it during dua, when your lips are saying, Ya Allah, guide me, but your heart is silently whispering, Ya Allah, bring them back. You feel it late at night, when the world is asleep, but your soul is still wide awake, held hostage by a memory or a fantasy that you can't seem to let go of. And what makes it even more painful is that it feels like you have no one to talk to about it. Because it's not a relationship, you feel like you can't call it a problem, you can't seek help, you can't ask for advice. So you suffer silently, you keep going, you smile during the day, but deep down, a part of you feels stuck, emotionally frozen in a place you never chose, but now can't escape. And this is how Shaytaan traps you, not with loud sin, but with quiet emotional attachment that slowly eats away at your time, your focus, and your connection with Allah. The Prophet taught us that the heart is a vessel. If it becomes corrupted, the entire body becomes corrupted, and that corruption doesn't always come from visible sins. Sometimes it begins with small, seemingly harmless feelings that are left unchecked. They grow, they spread, and eventually they take over. The truth is, your heart is too sacred to be given away silently to someone who may never be written for you. Your emotional energy is too valuable to be spent fantasizing about someone who might be a test, not a gift. And your time on this earth is too short to waste even a single day being pulled away from your Lord by someone who doesn't even know how deeply they occupy your soul. You might say, but it hurts to let go. I didn't choose to fall for them. I didn't ask for this. And that's valid. Our emotions are not always in our control. We don't choose what attracts us. We don't choose what makes our heart feel soft. But we do choose what we do with those feelings. We do choose whether we feed them or fight them, whether we turn to Allah with our pain or escape into imagination. And the more we feed a silent love that is unspoken, unreciprocated, and unproductive, the more we give it the power to harm us. It doesn't just delay us. It changes us. It rewrites the way we think, the way we pray, the way we see the world. And if we're not careful, it can quietly turn us away from the very light we once walked in. The solution is not to shame yourself for having feelings. Feelings are not sins, but they are signs. They are signs that your heart needs something deeper, something more nourishing, something real, and that something is not found in another person. It is found in returning to Allah with your heart in your hands, saying, Ya Allah, this person occupies my mind, but I want you to occupy my soul. I surrender this attachment to you, even if it hurts. I choose peace over longing. I choose you over them. That moment of surrender might feel painful at first, but what follows it is clarity, relief, and a slow but beautiful return to yourself. The self that worships with focus, prays with depth, and walks through this life light-hearted, no longer carrying the heavy burden of silent longing. Let go, not because they are bad, not because you are weak, but because your soul was created to love something far greater than a dream. You were created to love the one who hears your thoughts before you speak them, who sees your tears before they fall, and who has something better written for you, if only you create space for it. 5. A love that doesn't lead to nikah is a distraction, not a destination. One of the most common deceptions we fall into, especially when feelings are strong and the heart is involved, is convincing ourselves that love, even without commitment, is still meaningful and pure. We tell ourselves, they just need more time. Or, it's complicated right now, but it will work out. Or even, if I wait long enough, they'll be ready for me. But what we often fail to realize is that a love that goes nowhere, a love that never moves forward towards something real and halal, is not a love that's guiding you. It's a love that's delaying you. It's not a path. It's a pause button on your growth, your clarity, and your connection with Allah. Love in Islam is not forbidden. It's not haram to feel attracted, to care deeply, or to want companionship. These are all parts of our fitrah, our natural design. But Islam sets clear boundaries and guidelines around love, not to deny us happiness, but to protect us from emotional destruction. Love was never meant to be a game of guessing, hiding, and waiting. It was never meant to drain your soul while you hold on to someone who isn't moving toward nikah. Love in its proper place is built on action, not endless intention. It's built on protection of dignity, not postponement of responsibility. And when someone truly loves you in a way that is sincere, Allah-conscious, and rooted in goodness, they won't ask you to wait in silence, suffer in patience, or break little pieces of yourself just to stay close to them. Yet, many people stay in emotional situationships for years. There's no proposal, no proper steps taken, no families involved, no mention of a timeline, just feelings, emotional dependency, and endless what-ifs. And every time the heart starts to break, they give just enough attention to keep the hope alive. They disappear when it's inconvenient and return when they feel ready again. And because you're emotionally invested, you stay, you wait, you dream of a future where everything finally comes together. You make dua, you cry, you beg Allah to make it work. But deep down, you know that something about it just doesn't feel right. It feels uncertain. It feels shaky. It feels like a house built on sand. That is not what real love feels like. Real love comes with intention. Real love honors your soul, not just your emotions. Real love seeks protection from Allah before pleasure for itself. If someone is truly written for you, they will not delay you in uncertainty. They will not let months or even years go by with vague promises and no plan. They will understand that if they truly fear Allah, then they cannot keep your heart in a place that Allah has not permitted. They cannot continue receiving emotional support, validation, or comfort from you without stepping into commitment, because anything less than that is not noble. It's selfish. The Prophet taught us to act quickly when the heart finds goodness in another. He said, if someone whose religion and character you are pleased with comes to you for marriage, then marry them. Tirmidhi, that is how Islam protects the heart, by encouraging action, not endless delay. When two people are ready, they step forward with clarity and purpose. They involve families. They plan around nikah. They honor one another with transparency. And most importantly, they seek Allah's blessing from the very beginning. There are no games. There is no stringing along. There is no 5-year wait for someone to figure themselves out while you sit in emotional limbo. And if someone tells you they're not ready, believe them the first time. Don't stay stuck trying to prove your worth. Don't beg for crumbs of attention. Don't become the one who waits silently in the shadows, hoping that one day they'll choose you. Because someone who truly sees your worth will not risk losing you. They won't leave your heart exposed to doubt, pain, and confusion. They will either come forward with honor, or they will step aside with honesty. Anything in between is not love. It is uncertainty dressed up as hope. It is comfort that slowly turns into heartbreak. It is emotional energy being wasted on someone who may never be yours, no matter how deeply you feel. The Quran reminds us again and again that the true believers are people who guard their modesty and act with sincerity. They do not entertain endless desires. They do not feed fantasies that have no direction. They do not allow their hearts to become attached to people who don't have the courage or clarity to make their intentions known. This is not about being harsh. It's about being honest. Because one of the greatest forms of emotional injustice is giving someone your heart, your time, and your tears, only to realize that they were never truly ready to walk beside you in the light of Allah's guidance. And one of the greatest acts of self-respect is stepping away from a love that keeps you guessing and walking toward a future where your heart is honored, your deen is protected, and your peace is prioritized. You do not need to wait in emotional silence to be loved. You do not need to hurt in order to be chosen. If someone loves you, they will come forward with clarity. They will speak with action, and they will seek nikah not as a burden, but as a blessing, because they know that love without commitment is not a path to Jannah. It is a trap that delays your healing and distracts your heart from Allah. So the next time you find yourself in a love that is going nowhere, ask yourself with courage and honesty, is this truly leading me to the life I want, or is it keeping me from the life Allah has written for me? The answer to that question might hurt at first, but it will also set you free. 6. Any attachment that weakens your iman must be cut off for the sake of your akhirah. There are certain things in life that might feel good to the heart, that might give temporary comfort to the emotions, and even bring excitement or meaning to your days. But if they are slowly pulling you away from Allah, they are not worth keeping. This is especially true for emotional attachments. It doesn't matter how deeply you feel, how long you've held on, how many memories were made, or how much potential you believe still exists between you and this person. If the connection is weakening your faith, delaying your obedience, or poisoning your peace, then it is not love. It is a test, and it must be let go for the sake of your soul. Many people make the mistake of believing that just because a bond feels deep or intense, it must be from Allah. They think, if I feel this strongly, if they keep returning to my mind, if our paths keep crossing, it must mean something. But feelings alone are not a measure of truth. Shaytaan can use feelings too, and one of his most powerful tactics is to make you emotionally dependent on someone who distracts you from your akhirah while convincing you that it's a love story unfolding. He doesn't tell you to stop worshipping all at once. Instead, he makes you slowly tired of it, less focused, less inspired. He knows that once your heart becomes consumed by the wrong person, your connection with Allah begins to fade, not suddenly but subtly. You might still be praying, still fasting, still wearing your hijab or going to the masjid, still appearing religious on the outside. But on the inside, your worship starts to feel heavier, your du'as become less sincere, your tears during salah stop flowing. You no longer feel the sweetness in your relationship with Allah because something else has taken his place in your heart. And you can feel it, you know it, but you keep telling yourself that it's not that serious, that you'll fix it later, that once this relationship settles, your spirituality will return. But here's the reality. When your heart becomes emotionally enslaved to someone who is not yours in the sight of Allah, the spiritual damage doesn't wait for later. It happens now. It shows up in the way you prioritize their messages over your Quran. It shows in how you begin to delay your salah because you're emotionally drained. It shows in how you feel far from Allah, even while doing the right things, because your heart is somewhere else. You begin to feel numb, disconnected, lost in your own life, and no one can see it. This kind of emotional dependency is one of the most dangerous poisons to the soul because it doesn't feel haram in the beginning. It doesn't look sinful, it just feels like love. But when love is not grounded in obedience, when it does not lead you to nikah or barakah or growth in your deen, then it becomes something harmful, not because the person is evil, but because your heart is no longer free. You were not created to live in chains, and you especially were not created to be chained to something that is harming your iman. If Allah is the one who gives peace, and you are feeling more anxious, confused, and emotionally exhausted with every passing day, then ask yourself, where is this love really coming from? Is it truly from Allah? Or is it something I've been forcing because I'm afraid of letting go? There is no love on earth, no matter how beautiful it feels, that is worth losing your relationship with Allah. There is no person so special that they are worth delaying your spiritual healing for. Your iman, your connection to your Lord, and your place in the akhirah will always matter more than temporary comfort. And if holding on to someone is making you disobey Allah in small, unnoticed ways, if it is pulling you into secrecy, into fantasy, into sleepless nights filled with silent pain, then walking away is not just the smart thing to do, it is the right thing to do, spiritually, emotionally, eternally. Sometimes letting go of someone is not about losing them. It's about choosing yourself, your soul, your peace, your Lord. It's about recognizing that the longer you stay in a place of disobedience, the more you drift into spiritual darkness, even if the world around you doesn't see it. And the longer you wait for them to change, to return, to commit, the longer you put your own healing on pause. You don't have to hate them, you don't have to erase the memories, but you do have to make a decision. And that decision must be based on something deeper than desire or fear of loneliness. It must be based on truth. And the truth is, nothing is worth sacrificing your akhirah for. Nothing is worth sacrificing your peace with Allah for. When you finally choose to walk away from a person who is weakening your iman, even if it breaks your heart, you will feel a different kind of strength rise in you. You will begin to feel a clarity that you haven't felt in months. You will pray again with presence. You will breathe again with ease. You will cry in sujood, not because you're begging for them to come back, but because you're finally free, finally realigning with the one who never abandoned you. Allah says in the Quran, "And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him a way out, and will provide for him from where he does not expect." Surah At-Talaq 65 verse 2-3. This is not just a promise for provision of wealth. It is also a promise for emotional provision, for healing, for peace, for relief, and for replacements more beautiful than anything you ever imagined. But that promise is only for the one who fears Allah enough to walk away from what harms their deen. Letting go might feel like loss in the beginning, but it is actually gain in disguise, because in choosing to protect your soul, you are choosing to protect your akhirah, and there is no greater victory than that. So you must ask yourself, who holds your heart? Is it someone who brings you closer to Allah, or someone who keeps you suspended in emotional confusion? Is it someone who acts with honor and intention, or someone who delays and disappears while your soul suffers in silence? And most importantly, is this love leading you to Jannah, or is it taking pieces of you while promising something it can't give? Sometimes the most sincere act of love is walking away, not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of protection for your soul, for your faith, for your future, because there is no one on this earth worth losing your place in Jannah for, and if someone was truly written for you, they would never ask you to compromise your deen just to keep them close. True love in Islam is not found in endless conversations. It's not built on secrecy, fantasy, or emotional codependency. It is found in clarity, in intention, in honor. It begins with the name of Allah and walks forward with purpose. It invites families. It seeks nikah. It protects hearts instead of breaking them. It leads you to light, not to longing. So if you're in a situation that's been quietly draining you, if you're holding on to someone who only brings you tears, confusion, and distance from Allah, then maybe it's time to ask a harder question. What am I really holding on to? And what would happen if I let go, not out of despair, but out of trust? Trust that Allah replaces, trust that He heals, trust that what you release for His sake will return to you purified or be replaced by something better. Allah never wastes pain that is surrendered to Him. You were not created to chase hearts. You were created to guard your own. And the moment you finally choose Allah over attachment, purpose over fantasy, akhirah over emotions, you'll feel something returning that no person could ever give you. Your peace, your clarity, your closeness to the one who never breaks hearts that are handed to him. So love, but love within the boundaries of your deen. Attach, but only to what brings you nearer to Allah. And when in doubt, always remember, what leads you away from Allah was never sent by Him. Let go with faith. Walk away with grace and turn your heart back to the only one who never lets go of you, even when you forget Him. Because the safest place for your heart has always been in sujood.